Good afternoon. Thank you. What keeps you up at night? What worries you? What are things that make you difficult to sleep? Here are some of the things that I worry about. AI and our planet. Increased energy use, increased water use, ghost work. That's all the hard human labor behind AI. The material footprint that is growing. Global inequalities, algorithmic harms, augmented climate misinformation, deep fakes, fake news, fake science, the concentration of money and power. That's kind of few things that keep me up at night. But I want to take a step back and zoom out a little bit. And this is another question that's a little bit more fun. What if there was a move 37 for the planet? How many of you are aware, know about the move 37? Clap your hands. Have you heard about it? A few people. There you go. So move 37 comes from this legendary moment when AlphaGo in 2016 managed to beat the world champion at the game of Go, if you remember that. Feels like a long time ago. And there was something happening in the second game of this machine versus human story that took a lot of people by surprise. Move 37, the AlphaGo system made a move that surprised everybody in the room. And experts said, wow, seems like this very sophisticated AI system has made a mistake. And it was so shocking that Lee Sedol left the room for 15 minutes. If you see the documentary, you can see him go out for a smoke. And once you dive deep into Move 37, people realized that this was an incredibly ingenious, clever move by the system. And experts in this game said, this is not a human move. I've never seen a human play this move. It's so beautiful, beautiful. So that was the sense that particular move made. And of course, the system won. So let's take a little bit of a step back. I mean, we're here to talk about impact. We're here to talk about technology. What is technology? And whenever I think about technology, I go to one of my old friends, Brian Arthur, and he says three things about technology. First of all, technology fulfills a human purpose. So like this clicker, it's an artifact. It clicks my presentation. It connects to a computer. The other aspect is that technologies are bodies of technologies combined. So this clicker connects to a laptop that then has the presentation flow that then gets shared on the screen and people can hear it. You know, like connection of different technologies. And then the last point, which I've found the most fascinating, is technologies as a collective endeavor, as a social activity. We use technologies when we communicate, when we collaborate, when we're creative. And that particular aspect of technology, I think, is underestimated. And this brings me to science and how science, technology, and artificial intelligence connects. So science, and this is also one of Brian's big insights in his remarkable book, scientific advances drive technological innovation, and technological innovation drives scientific breakthroughs. If you think about satellite technologies, so satellite technologies are a combination of engineering and scientific insights put into a technology that then drives new scientific discoveries of our planet. So that science, technology, innovation are not separate things. They move as one. We take for granted that science has always looked the same, but this is not the case. So this is an old geometry book from 1482. And at that time, in the 1400s and 1300s, and also later, everything happening in nature or in our world was explained through the language of geometry. If you wanted to explain a change, you needed to use the language of geometry. That, of course, had its limitations. You hit a wall. Suddenly, you cannot explain more complex phenomena. But in the 1600s, so it took about 100 years, over 100 years, scientists moved into a different language and created another language called algebra. So through algebra, you could discover and see new patterns and explore new relationships. So that's one fundamental change in the language of science. that has driven new insights. It will be impossible to model and understand climate change without algebra. That's the language that allows us to speak and understand climate change. Now, and this is what is exciting and interesting, we might be moving, and I think we are, moving into a new area of scientific discovery through artificial intelligence. Some people would say that neural networks and AI is one of the few tools that allow us to properly understand change of change. Change of change. We live in a world where we not only see change, but we see change of change. The weather is not only changing, weather patterns, everything is changing drastically. And suddenly new things become available for us to understand that we couldn't understand before. So I want to give you an example from an article published in Nature by some German colleagues. So they argue in 2019, so that's kind of a long time ago, that the same type of AI systems that allow you to classify an object, in the first case, a dog or a cat, can be used to automatically classify and assess satellite images of tornadoes. It's the same AI technique. The same type of AI system that can help you resolve issues around resolution and fusion can be used to downscale climate models. Climate models tend to be very global things. But through that technique, you can actually downscale it down to municipal level to try to project what is going to happen. And video prediction, AI, which you can use to predict what's going to happen next in a video, can be used to try to forecast weather in new ways. So that's a couple of examples of how this happens. And this field is moving quickly. Another example, this is another study published in 2019, trying to assess how many people are at risk of coastal flooding due to climate change. Incredibly difficult. It's not only about sea level rise or extreme weather, it's also about where is infrastructure? What does the elevation look like in these cities? And this team, by using a neural network, managed to figure out that actually 3 times more people are vulnerable to climate change due to flooding because the use of neural networks. Another aspect of this, okay, there's no animation. Another team used open data and AI to predict extreme flood events in 80 countries, 7 days in advance, even in settings where data was very sparse. So this is what we're seeing in science now. This is where we see the potential for climate change. Large language models, of course, have a potential as well. There are some quite interesting studies of people who, in experiments, have used large language models and designed it in such a way that it actually managed to get people out of conspiracy theories. So engages in a dialogue, fact-based dialogue, and that person, after that conversation, changed his or her or their mind after. And that effect sticked around for several months. Another example, a team used a large language model to act as a negotiator in a democratic dialogue, and had another group as control where they used a human mediator in that dialogue. And the LLM performed better than the human mediator. So it was better to get to agreements faster. And a last illustration, we know these large language models have huge issues with climate misinformation. We've known that for quite a while, we've seen that early. But another team came up with the idea that actually you can use another LLM to clean up the mess that the first LLM has created, and therefore create a much better tool. So the applications are quite big. So this is what we wanted to tackle in a collaboration between us, Stockholm Resilience Center, the Potsdam Institute for Climate Research, and DeepMind, Google DeepMind. So if you can get a Nobel Prize for protein folding AI, how can you be clever? What are the ways that you can use the similar methods to figure out what AI for the planet would look like? We're not really there yet, but November 5th, we will launch this report called AI for a Planet Under Pressure. It will be, I believe, and I'm quite sure, the first review of its kind. We will not look into how you can use AI to optimize energy flows or create new materials, etc. The emphasis is on science. How can AI help us advance science that matter to people and the planet? We went through 5,600 publications. We've had expert deliberations with about 25 to 30 scientists, and we do a couple of theme deep dives. Just to go through it quickly, one of the themes is the Earth system. How is the Earth system integrated? So that means climate, oceans, forests, everything alive on the planet. How do these systems interact, and how could these change? How could these systems change? Other area, nature's contribution to people, biodiversity, for example. There are many others. Water, fresh water for all, green water and blue water, as we call it. Ocean. The oceans are acidification is increasing rapidly. How can AI help us understand what's going to happen? Polycrisis or global crisis. We live in an era where we have many interacting shocks to deal with at the same time. What are the ways that new types of data or AI methods can help us understand how these crises interact? Urban planet. 2/3 of the world's population will live in cities by 2040. How do we use AI in clever ways to protect people and allow them to innovate in the face of climate change? Collective decisions, we need to make collective decisions. Agree on stuff if we are to solve and get out of the climate crisis. How can AI help us do that? And science communication. Can we use and how can we use AI to improve the way we as scientists engage with the public to make sure that our message gets through in a proper way? A few high-level insights. I mean, the report is about 100 pages, so I'm just going to give you a short summary of it. First of all, of course, a world of AI inequalities. Access to data, access to compute, access to skills, and research is not happening in regions that are facing the most drastic impacts of climate change. It's not done for climate vulnerable people, and it's not done by climate vulnerable people. The other aspect is that we already see now, we've seen in the analysis we did, that AI is allowing us to make big scientific discoveries in the sustainability science. And this was even before Gen AI. I know everyone in the public are very excited about Gen AI, but when you look into the scientific discoveries of this, these have been happening for many, many years. The third point is that more scientific breakthroughs are likely in this domain. The amount of data, the amount of sophisticated AI models out there, and the people working with these will discover new things. The question is, are we discovering and unpacking these relationships at the speed that we need them to happen, considering the drastic and rapid changes on the planet? And can we increase the speed of this work with care, without amplifying extractive activities or contributing to further inequality or amplifying algorithmic harms? How do we balance urgency with scale and care? Here's an example of where we have failed, just to show you how important this issue is. So this is a paper that was published in 2025, where a team looked into computer vision AI research, which is an amazing field. I mean, I spoke to a scientist a few days ago who did cancer research using computer vision AI. But in this particular paper, what they found by analyzing 19,000 papers and 23,000 patent filings is that the majority of that research goes into surveillance-enabling technologies. And that transition from AI research into surveillance technology applications has increased fivefold. And we don't have to, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. So here's the call, and here's my message to you. We live on a planet that is sustained by something called the biosphere. The biosphere is the sum of all life, all living life, human and non-human life, in the oceans, in forests, in mangroves, including the climate system. Without that biosphere, we're nothing more than a dead rock floating around in space. That biosphere is what nurtures life. On that biosphere, we have built this incredible technosphere, the sum of all technologies and infrastructure. What are the ways that we can make sure that this technosphere protects the integrity of the biosphere to secure a human future? So going back to my original question that I opened with, is there a move 37 for the planet? There's a second part of the AlphaGo story that people tend to forget. There was in the fourth game, 2016, Lizzie Doll, something called move 78. So move 78 in game 4 was made by Lizzie Doll against the system. And that was yet another incredibly creative, unthought of move made by a human. If you're a Go fan, you would know that this move is called God's Touch. Got the name God's Touch. And that move was only possible because AlphaGo had produced the previous move. And I get the story, for me, this illustrates that this is not about AI becoming better than humans and achieving over capacities that we as humans cannot compete with. This is a story about human ingenuity, machines and humans interacting in a way that expands creativity in what is possible. So that's what I take away from this. There are many moves 37 and many moves 78 for the planet. I'm totally convinced about that. But that will not happen by itself. It needs to be created by you and me. Before I wrap up, because I'm going to wrap up, since I know there's a lot of people from all over the world here, whether you're from Spain or Germany or Sweden or whatever, remember to stand up for science. This is critical at this stage. If you're interested in social impact, changing the world, the strongest ally you can have in that journey is science. That's the only way we can create a safe and just future for all. Thank you.